I think we're on. Yep. Good evening. We're going to call to order this joint work session of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors and Planning and Zoning Commission. So at this time, I will turn this over to Don Clark.
Thank you. Mayor, Board, Don Clark, Community Development Director. Thank you guys. Planning Commission, thank you for being here. So this is another step in this process as we move along through the comprehensive plan. I got to stop saying update because I believe this is going to be a whole brand new one. It's not going to be simply an update of what we had previously. So today, what we'll do is we'll go through the presentation. We have Dawn Warwick here with Freese & Nichols, who is the consultant on the comprehensive plan. And along with her is Jason Clonch, who's the economic development consultant with Freese & Nichols for our comprehensive plan. So we started today with stakeholder meetings. We met with quite a few businesses around Siloam that we met up at the library, and I can tell you I thought the feedback was great. The things that were brought out, it was very engaged. I think the consultants even would tell you that it was not typical of what they normally get from a group of people. And we had a diverse group of business owners. We had business owners from 412, Mount Olive, downtown. And so the feedback was great. And so really excited, even more excited about this process as we move forward. So we'll go through, Dawn will go through, and I think Jason also has a part in the presentation, and then we'll wrap it up and we'll come back to you and answer any questions that you have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dawn Warwick with Freese & Nichols.
Thank you, Don. Thanks, everybody, for inviting us today. We're really pleased to be here to help get this project really started on the ground. We've been doing some background work, just some foundational things, a little research about the city, and shaping up kind of the schedule and all of the components of executing the project, which was on hiatus for a little while. So we're happy to get this thing back moving forward and to be here to get you guys a good overview of where we are in the project and what this is going to look like moving forward. So that is the goal. We're going to cover a few things in the presentation today, including I'll introduce you to the project team and provide you just a little bit of an overview of what's entailed in the development of a comprehensive plan, some of the components of that plan. We'll talk specifically, Jason will talk about the economic development piece. We know that that's very important to the city. We'll talk about community values, and that's really bringing forward an understanding of what is in the current 2008 comprehensive plan and how that is going to at least help shape an understanding of where we are today, and then begin looking forward. The overview of a SWOT exercise. A SWOT exercise is when we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We conducted that exercise with the CPAC, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee that you all appointed a while back. So we're going to review what they told us, what we've learned so far from that encounter. Same thing with the visioning exercise, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for you guys to give us some feedback on those things as well. And then I'll give you a quick look at some of the resources that we've developed that will carry us through the project and help be sort of a landing place for people to gather information and stay connected to the project. So starting with introductions, my name is Dawn Warwick. I'm a urban planner with Freese & Nichols. I'm the project manager for this comprehensive plan. Just by way of a little bit of background, I have been with Freese & Nichols for a little over 2 years. Prior to that, I was a municipal planner for more than 20 years in different locations. Worked in Fayetteville for about 10 years, worked in Kentucky for Louisville Metro Government for 7 years, and then most recently was the planning director for the city of Tulsa before joining the firm. On our team, we also have a couple of urban planners, Erica Craycraft and Eliana Tooley. Both are very skilled with developing comprehensive plans, and they both also do code work, so they understand what is necessary in the development of a plan that can then be carried into implementation. Jason Clonch and Reed Cleater are our sub-consultants. They're with Catalyst Commercial, and they'll be helping specifically with the economic development component of the project. They'll really be looking at making sure the comprehensive plan is setting out realistic recommendations and goals that the city has the resources or can develop the resources to implement, so that it's not just a plan that cannot be implemented because resources are not available. And then we know that that's very important. It needs to be realistic. It needs to be actionable. We also have folks back in the office. I've included some others that are on our team. Wendy Chabet is the group manager over the urban planning and design team. Eddie Haas is a transportation planner and project manager, and Keith Beatty is a civil engineer in the Tulsa office. And so we may be utilizing their resources as well as we move through the project. So as you all know, I think that your team has done a really good job of preparing the city and the decision makers here for a new comprehensive plan. They've got a really good handle on what it means to have a plan, and from what I've seen, this is a community that likes to establish goals, set those goals through your strategic plan or other types of tools, and check them off the list. Really do the things that you set out to do, and I think that that's a fabulous place to start. It gives you very good credibility, and it allows you to look at things like new policies, such as a comprehensive plan, that people understand you're going to use, and it'll be part of the daily set of tools that the city relies upon when they're making decisions. So starting with a vision that the community helps to develop, the comprehensive plan will become that long-term policy guide for growth and development over the coming decades. It can be then utilized to support any programs, policies, or regulations that you feel are necessary to implement that plan. And as I mentioned, a day-to-day, regularly used guide to decision making. The last plan for the city of Siloam Springs Forward, was adopted in 2008. It utilized previous planning methods or planning efforts as a foundation. And again, we will utilize that information and then carry forward an understanding of where we are today, and then and sort of infuse the community's new vision to set the stage for this new comprehensive plan. It's important that the comprehensive plan is calibrated to address the city's goals and economic conditions. And so some of the things that we've recognized just in a little bit of background work so far is, of course, the city's steadily growing. We know that, and it's been consistent since 2010 and before. You have a large population of young adults in the city, and that's a little bit different than what we see in the Benton County or in the state. And we've also seen by the graph on the screen, you can see that the housing permitting has changed, or residential permitting has sort of evolved over time. You still have a majority of your residential permits being issued for single-family homes, but you do see that starting in about 2015, you get more two-family homes and then multifamily homes or multifamily residences more recently. So the plan itself will be built around a framework with these chapters or plan elements that you see on the screen. The community snapshot is very much an understanding of the demographics and existing conditions that are present in the city. Vision, guiding principles, and goals, those are sort of the strategies that will shape the plan, and that again is based largely on public input that we'll gather through the planning process. We'll update your future land use map and look at your master street plan and really look at all different types of transportation and mobility, whether that is the network for bicycles and pedestrians, for vehicles, for transit, or for moving goods and services. The economic development component will kind of take a look at where things are today and what resources are needed, as I mentioned, for implementing the plan moving forward. It'll be a little bit of a test to see if the goals and the long-range vision with regard to land use is something that can be achieved through the economic lens and market conditions. We'll look at the housing within the city and needs for the future. Livability is really a way to look at I think in this chapter we've included things like sustainability and just the quality of life of the community. So community character is just that. It's how people feel about the community, what image people see when they think of Siloam Springs, and how that's expressed through the public realm, whether that's signage, wayfinding, other types of visual cues. We'll also look at public facilities and services. And then the key chapter to making it all come together is implementation. This is really the roadmap for what steps need to be taken in order to accomplish the goals that are set in the plan. Several weeks ago, the Board of Directors established CPAC, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. The members are listed here, and we have started meeting with the CPAC. We've had one meeting so far. It's successful, even though it was a crazy week because it was the week of the winter storms. The CPAC is our steering committee. They will help to ensure that the community input is reflected in the plan, that we are taking into account they're intended to serve as a cross-section of the community so that we have sort of a touch point throughout the planning process. And we will work with them on on all the different pieces of the plan as it's developed, so that they help guide that and make sure that, if there are big questions that we need to address as we move forward, then we're going to look to them to help us to identify that type of issue. They're also ambassadors to the plan, and we hope that all of you will be as well, helping the community understand that there is a project going on, that it's something that we want them to be engaged in and to understand, so that we're bringing people along with us. It's one of those projects that takes quite a bit of time to develop, and we don't want to surprise anybody at the last minute and have people question, well, what are you doing at the 11th hour? So it's important that we have people who can help feed information to and from the planning process, and just help get the word out. Public engagement is key to making sure that we have a successful plan and that it represents the community's vision appropriately. And so there are a lot of different ways that we're going to establish public engagement activities throughout the planning process. We already have regular calls with the staff team to make sure that we are coordinating with them and that everything's kind of aligned with regard to timing, schedule, as well as expectations. We are conducting these orientation meetings, this one as well as the one a week or so ago with the CPAC. We will meet, as I mentioned, various times throughout the planning process with the CPAC to talk about the plan elements and activities. We started today with some stakeholder interviews, just sort of focus group meetings where we're having the opportunity to sit down with groups of people that represent different sectors of the community and can give us some more in-depth information. Again, this is all sort of building that foundation of information that will help to shape the plan. We will have community outreach in various formats. We're trying to ensure that we present things in multiple ways so that people will feel comfortable with one or more of those ways to connect with the project. Given the pandemic, we know that that's even more important than ever. So we're trying to ensure that those options are available. And again, throughout the project, we'll have 2 or 3 additional times that we'll be able to come to you and present updates so that you're kept abreast of the project. I know also that Ben will be doing monthly updates to the Planning and Zoning Commission so that everybody just has access to information. The other thing that is probably a really good touch point for in between those meetings is the project website. This is your landing page for all things comprehensive plan. The website is active, and it is siloamsprings2040.com, so we tried to make it pretty easy to remember. We'll also use surveys and social media channels as ways to reach out to the community. This is a lot of boxes, but this is generally the schedule that we're going to be following for the 18-month-long project. We've identified on here primary outreach efforts. So you'll see on this slide that it's really hitting those meetings and engagement activities. There's plenty of other things that sort of happen in between, but we wanted to make sure that it was clear that there'll be several touch points throughout the planning process where we are able to engage with the community and also with the board and planning commission. Okay. So in this next section, I would just want to take a few minutes and give you guys a little bit of a familiarity with what we've found with regard to the sorry about that. Okay, let me make sure I'm not messing up our screen here. Okay, not gonna touch it again. There we go. All right, we're gonna call that good. The snapshot, we've started looking at the census and other data points just to understand what the existing conditions look like. And so what you see here is what I mentioned before. There's been steady growth in the community. Population is trending up with an average annual growth rate of about 1.7%, which is steady and pretty good. That sets us up for anticipated population in the year 2040 of just over 28,000 people. So one of the things that will be a key focus in the plan will be to understand how to plan for that additional population, where, what types of resources are necessary, whether that's housing or municipal services, and where those are best situated within the community. This is the chart that we're looking at age, and so we've just noticed that there is a pretty large population of residents that are between the ages of 20 and 24. It's a college town, so it makes sense that you've got a large population of young adults. It is younger than the median age in either Benton County or in the state. The racial distribution in the community right now, I mean, is as shown. It's still a predominantly white community. There are some other races that are showing up and probably growing in numbers with regard to the distribution in the community, and then household types. We noticed that, and this kind of goes along with the age. There are single householders living alone at a pretty high rate of percentage, and in both male and female householders. So that was something that looked a little interesting, but again, it sort of correlates with your demographic as far as having a young adult population that's a little bit higher than other areas. All right. Looking at household income, I'm really wishing I could not have this. All right, we're going to try that. We also looked at household income, just where it sits with regard to growth and relative to other communities and the county and the state. Siloam Springs has seen an increase in household income between 2010 and 2019, and hold on. And it's been an increase that's been on par with the state, but not necessarily on par with Benton County. And so we know that Benton County is a little bit of an aberration. All right. Hey, how about that? My team is texting me because they're watching us on YouTube. So thanks, Erica. We also are looking at existing land use. This is a map that just shows the distribution of existing land use in the city, and this is valuable because it identifies where things actually are occurring. It's going to be very similar to the zoning map, but it's not exactly the same as the zoning map. And understanding the existing land use helps us then to project and look at what changes are necessary or desirable with regard to updating the future land use map. So this will be a key part of the discussion as we move forward through the planning process. All right, I'm going to step back for just a minute, and Jason's got a few slides to just introduce the economic development element of the project.
Thank you, Dawn, members of council and planning. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. We had a very full and busy day, and I echo the comments. We had a ton of great input. So thanks to Dawn and the team for organizing that. I think that was very helpful for us today to continue to advance the thinking. We're going to be working with Freeze to talk about economic development opportunities. Obviously, when you think about land use and economic development is certainly very powerful together. Part of what we're going to be thinking about is, how do we create opportunities to increase corporate attraction? Where should that go? How does that interplay with some of the neighborhoods? So again, a very important topic. I know there's been some discussion of expanding business and how do you do that appropriately? Most of your growth, 80% or more of your growth will come from existing businesses who are already here, who are growing by labor and growing their business needs. And so we're going to spend a lot of time thinking about business retention and how to nurture the existing business base that you have here to make sure that you're healthy and resilient from that standpoint. And then all of this interrelates with, we'll be thinking about different land use topics and designs and elements and those things, but part of it will be about talent and workforce. And the most important thing you can do is continue to foster the higher ed that you have here and partner with the ISD and making sure that you're continue to provide the skill set and the talent that your businesses will need in the future. So we'll be looking at occupational needs and employment needs and clusters and all that will certainly relate to how much businesses that you need and help Freeze and staff design the appropriate programs. When you think about economic development, you've got to have infrastructure to service that future economic development. So we'll be working with them on not only land use, but what are the economic needs for new housing and new businesses and industrial parks. And we'll also be looking at your existing infrastructure. 412 and a lot of your roadways are large and carry a lot of traffic. And so we want to look at how that relates to economic development and some of the needs of businesses as some of that continues to evolve and upgrade to make sure that those roadways and future sewer extensions and those things can accommodate the growth. And we had a lot of discussion today about catalyst sites. Where are those future catalytic opportunities that we can provide opportunities? We talked a lot about future businesses expanding in downtown and how can you make those opportunities known, what makes sense for what types of businesses. In addition, we think about the area north and northeast of Lowe's, and obviously that area is ripe for commercial development, but certainly that has to transition in neighborhoods. So we want to look at the balance and the transition between those uses and understand what's appropriate. On a short-term horizon, that's not very hard, but when you're putting together a plan that has implications 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, so we've got to spend some time and really looking at how all those land uses might relate. And then corridors and gateways. I spent a lot of time today in between meetings driving and looking at various opportunities to create identities. I know there's been some thinking already in downtown and East Main, and then the differences and sort of the nuances between 412 and how that interrelates to downtown and some of the connections and gateways. And so we want to look at how can you improve those to increase economic vitality and also promote economic development opportunities. And then we talked a lot about quality of life. This is an amazing place to grow a family. And I know that you're working on some really interesting opportunities to take advantage of some of the nature with the kayak and some of the uses. We know that hiking and biking and those things are very important that people want to live here. So we want to look at those opportunities to sort of relate open space and natural areas and trails. We talked a lot about just functional connectivity, even between uses, but how to improve quality of life when we think about designing. And then overall neighborhood health. If you think about the value of your neighborhoods and the tax base that supports, what can we do going forward to integrate, leading edge, principles in terms of providing mixed housing. We talked a lot about with some of the realtors about some of the missing housing, not only the missing middle or maybe infill housing downtown or at different scales, but What about luxury housing that could accommodate some of the corporate and higher wage earners that could be accommodated within the city limits, so that we don't have some of that spilling over to the county if they choose and desire to live closer to the urban areas. And so we're going to take all of this feedback and sort of the economic potential. Don talked a lot about growth and increase in wealth in the market, and how can we continue to kind of nurture that and build the environment where the community can be successful and be healthy and have vitality in terms of economic development. And so all of this will certainly be working together to make sure that we can provide a plan that's fiscally resilient. That was one of the things that we've been charged with. All this sounds great, but how do you pay for it? And how do we accommodate it? And how do we have make sure that we have a balanced plan that accomplishes everything that we want to accomplish, but in a smart way going forward. So with that, I'll let Don take back over the presentation, but we'll certainly be here to answer any additional questions.
So a couple weeks ago when we met with the CPAC for the first time, we wanted to start and understand what knowledge they brought to the project from looking at the 2008 comprehensive plan. And we provided them the pages from that plan that really reviewed 13 community values that the plan was kind of shaped around, and wanted them to give us an understanding of which of those values they felt were not important, were somewhat important, or were important to them and to the city. And so we applied values to the results of that. We did a pre-meeting survey, and so we applied values to the results. And the majority of those values are seen to be quite important, with the most being improving some of the infrastructure, streets and parks, but also looking at things like attainable housing and ensuring there's a sense of place within the community. And then kind of in the middle range, there was a focus on the values related to downtown, improved public facilities, conserving the natural environment, and economic development initiatives, and then also mobility, transportation-related issues, pedestrian mobility, excuse me. Then kind of moving down, there was a ranking of managing growth, looking at options for public transportation, constructing new streets, and expanding the industrial park. Were also mentioned, those were values that were raised up in the 2008 plan, and all of those were rated either important or rated either somewhat or important within the feedback that we received from the CPAC. We also asked them, with relationship to those same 13 values, how well the city has done in the past 13 years in achieving those core values. And the responses were great. Everyone felt within those 13 core values that they were all responded as either good or excellent as far as how the city has done in achieving them. So we also, in the CPAC meeting, we went through what I mentioned was a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats exercise. And so the next few slides, I'll take you through the feedback that we received from the CPAC. And I know that the words on these slides are pretty small, but we had a good conversation. We spent the most of our time really focused around these particular questions and looking at what the feedback from the CPAC was regarding the city's strengths. A lot of that was we talked about a couple of different things. There was sort of the emphasis on the natural setting and the environment that Siloam Springs enjoys with regard to nature, having streams within the community, access to lakes and the river, and really just enjoying the natural setting that is here. And then people also talked about the sense of community and the small town feel, and also looked at things like downtown and community events that are very unique and special activities that you really only find here in Siloam Springs. So those are some of the highlights. When we asked about weaknesses, and I always kind of grudge a little bit at this term because weaknesses are really not necessarily, I guess I hate it for things like job interviews too. What are your weaknesses? I don't want to tell you what I do poorly, but it helps to understand the things that people feel like we could do better. And so I look at these as areas for improvement maybe. And these are things that can translate very easily into opportunities. So things that sort of tie back to maybe extending biking and walking trails. So we've got nature, we've got an environment that people like to be in and to enjoy. So maybe extending biking and walking trails is something. It was noted that we could do better with regard to public gathering spaces. Maybe that connects. Also, there's a lack of public transportation. What do we need to look at with regard to improving access to jobs, to shopping, to core services by way of public transportation? An arts center was mentioned. Childcare options, shopping opportunities. We heard a few things today as well that sort of echoed the feedback that we received from the CPAC, that there are some really great local shopping options, but people are maybe looking for some additional retail opportunities, so they don't necessarily have to go to the corridor to get everything, well, not everything, but to get some of those larger purchase items. And clothing, I think, was one of the things that was mentioned as well. So we got some really good ideas from this conversation, and it was rich in just understanding where people feel like the city has maybe started to make efforts in certain directions, and that's a good start, and we want to carry some of those initiatives forward. So, for instance, there was some discussion about different housing types that may be desirable to fill some gaps that people feel are existing within the housing stock right now. So, also hit some highlights on things that were identified as opportunities in this discussion. Definitely the community atmosphere, the small town feel is something that was mentioned in all of the categories, except maybe weaknesses. It was definitely something that everyone felt like was part of what Don Clark would probably call the DNA of Siloam Springs. And that's part of what we're trying to understand, is what are the components that really make that up. So other things that were opportunity discussions included cultural arts programs, housing developments for 59 and over, affordable low-income housing. So again, it comes to opportunities for diversifying maybe the housing mix that's available in the community. Retail growth was also mentioned, so gateways, let's see, a little bit on traffic. Enhancing tourism was something that came up specifically in the CPAC, but a lot today during our conversations with stakeholders. The kayak park coming online, other destination tourism type things that are things that people could only experience in Siloam Springs, maybe finding ways to amplify those and make connections so that people can kind of build a trip around different activities that happen here within the city. Let's see. Opportunity for becoming more culturally diverse within the representation of the city, and I would say that that's definitely a possibility, and in improving opportunities for more lucrative jobs in the city. So all of that sort of speaks to things that people would like to strive for, and so then we talked about the things that could potentially be hindrances to reaching those goals, maybe achieving some of those things. So these are not necessarily things that are happening. These are things that could happen, maybe if we're not careful and don't address them adequately within the plan. So ensuring that we maintain that hometown, small town feel, maintaining a proper distribution of housing, high vacancy rates. So there's potentially concern with not being able to maintain tenants within structures, especially newer constructed ones. Let's let's see, development in 412 around Highway 59. So that, I think, almost is an opportunity as well as a threat. I'm not sure. We'll have to tease that one out a little bit. But those are things that that could be welcoming if done properly. So it's maybe one of those that needs a little bit of attention with regard to how that area is treated. Quality hotels, the quality of many hotels is something that someone mentioned as an issue that may be concerning. Landscaping, improving sidewalks, so taking care of the public realm so that it is maintained and in a good condition. So again, we've got some folks that are talking about different types of housing, and so again, it's definitely one of those. The threats are things that we want to keep in our mind for how we position recommendations, and as we develop ideas for how the community evolves and grows, we want to make sure that we're maybe mitigating to the extent possible any of these threats that people have identified. So we talked with the CPAC again during the same meeting about visioning, and the general question is, what does Siloam Springs want to be? We're looking at a planning horizon or a year of 2040, so a couple of decades in the future. What does the ideal Siloam Springs look like in 2040, and how is it uniquely different from other communities within the region? So what sets it apart? And this goes back to a lot of those things that came up in the strengths and opportunities discussions, but maybe kind of they became a little bit more refined in this part of the conversation. And we got comments that ranged from making sure that we're a diverse city that's welcoming to all, become a city of choice in the region, be a destination for the types of activities that only Siloam Springs can offer, really leverage creeks, springs, and rivers that are unique to this location. Emphasize downtown, because it is something special that's not found in other locations. They also talked about becoming a foodie's dream destination and enhancing things like, providing more programming, outdoor programming, as well as things like music festivals. Let's see, so those are some of the visioning ideas that we received from the CPAC. The other thing that I wanted to spend just a minute on with you are a couple of the resources related to the plan. SiloamSprings2040.com is the project website. This is the homepage of that website, and just to give you a little bit of a tour, there's a menu bar at the top that allows you to look at the About section. The About section will tell you an overview of what the comprehensive plan is. It also, the Get Involved tab is a great place to go to see any of the public engagement activities. It will also provide presentations and information from all of the meetings that are conducted relative to the planning process, and just basically be a calendar of events so that you can track what's happening and plug in there. Let's see, the documents, as we develop pieces of the plan, there will be drafts placed in that location. Right now, it has links to the 2008 plan as well as the downtown master plan. The team is an introduction to the team working on the project, not just the consultant team, but your city team as well as the CPAC members are listed there. And then there's a contact tab, and that allows people to go and sign up. You can sign up from this home screen. You can see it there on the main page, but you can also sign up on the contact page to receive updates on the plan as it proceeds. And there's also on the contact page an option for people to submit a statement or a question about the plan and receive feedback on that. There will be some other tools built in as we move forward. One of the things that is on the website right now and is prominently on the website is a public survey. And this is an online survey that is active as of yesterday. So everybody is welcome to go and take the survey. It introduces the plan, and it asks people to help us understand what their vision of the future is for the city, what their priorities are, and then a little bit more about those priorities. So the priorities that people have to choose from are the key activities or elements of the plan, things like housing and transportation and economic development. And then we ask a few additional questions based upon the top 5 priorities that people identify. And then on the wrap-up screen, which is the summary, it's basically a little bit of demographic information and an opportunity to provide a few words with regard to a vision statement. So we ask people, just to start letting us understand what is important to them and what they want this plan to look like as it will shape their community moving forward. I will say that right now we're saying that this is going to tentatively close on April 12th. So we're going to keep the survey open, was that about 6 weeks, 5 weeks? So we're gathering feedback basically all through March and into April. There is a flyer that everybody should have had at their desks or chairs that introduces the survey, provides information about the website, and announces the first public meeting for the project. It'll be March 18th at the public library. And I think it's probably important to note that each of those tools for gathering input are all based on the same information. So we wanted people to have options to be able to connect with the project through the survey if they choose to do so online and not to attend a public meeting, but they also have the opportunity to attend a public meeting. We'll also have meeting kits available that people can pick up at City Hall here, and those kits will also basically be mimicking the survey, but some people are not necessarily going to want to plug into an online tool, so we wanted to give people as many options as possible, and some of those tools will also be translated into Spanish so that Spanish speakers have the opportunity to review and submit feedback in their native language. Okay. And this brings us to questions. I'll be happy to answer questions if anyone has them with regard to the project.
I've got some, Don.
Yes, sir.
Earlier in the presentation, you said the population expected by 2040. Did you say 28,000? I could.
Yes, sir.
You're using the 2.5% number when you said our number was 1.7% growth. So you're taking the highest number possible. Did you realize? I just didn't know if you realized that.
No, the way that I understood the way we calculated that to be a 1.7% annualized growth rate, but we will double check the numbers. We're happy to.
Well, there were 3 different choices, and you went with the highest one, which was
yes,
28%.
Okay. I see what you're saying. No, you're right.
And I
you're
wondered why
right.
you wouldn't have gone more with 1.5 or 2
You're
instead of
absolutely right.
2.5%. So that
I
was
jumped
just,
to the farthest side of the
yeah.
column. No,
Yeah.
you're correct. So that
It's
did break down.
optimistic, but I mean,
It could happen.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
just didn't know.
definitely on the high side. Then thank you for the correction.
I just didn't know if I heard right was why I was asking. On the community value slide, it says only 8 responses. Where did the 8 responses come from? Was it asked by the or was it the committee?
It was the committee.
Okay,
So,
okay,
right.
okay.
The majority of the committee responded, and actually after we finished the survey, a few additional committee members responded, so that we got, I think we had a full 11 or 12 responses from the CPAC that shaped that response.
Well, were the responders given a list of choices to rank, or did they throw these out themselves?
They were given those 13 because those are the 13 values that were identified in the 2008 plan, and they were asked to say whether they felt those were not important, or somewhat important, or important. So there are just really 3 categories, there are classifications that they could choose from, and then we assigned values to those 3 classifications, with the important ones getting a 3, somewhat important getting a 2, and not important getting a 1 rating, and that's what we came up with for the
Will you
actual
do that
survey.
again?
We probably won't do that with the at a broader scale. That was really a touch point for us to check in with the CPAC members so that they, were able to just start giving us some feedback. We don't necessarily want to continue to carry forward all of the components of the 2008 plan, because this is intended to be a brand new plan.
Yeah.
But we felt like that was at least a generator for the initial conversation.
I think those topics in 2008 came from the members of whatever group it was, just giving their input, and it's 13 years, so
Right.
I just didn't know how 8 responses was really representative of enough people to include in the report. And then on the public survey on the website, how are you going to get the word out to the public to get online and do that?
We've started with information on the city's website and through all their social media channels that have begun to go out. A couple of posts have gone out in the past few days. We'll continue to do that. We've communicated with the stakeholders who participated today and asked them to post those flyers and to share that information with their friend groups and their social media channels as well. So those are our main communication methods. The city's communication expert is part of the team. She has a schedule of different posts that will go up on various social media channels and on the city site. So those are our main means of communication at this point in time.
This has always been the problem, in that when we've done things like this, is that there is a huge population of older people that just don't even do any social media, and many of them don't even do online. And so you got to go back to the hard copy stuff to reach some of these people, and so I didn't know if you had any plan there. And then finally, I was just going to ask, why close the survey so soon? Because it doesn't seem like you're having enough public meetings to get the word through those to encourage people. I mean, we're already in the first week of March, and yeah, it's 5 weeks away, and it just doesn't seem like enough time to get enough people. Because I know you want I think you want a wide, diverse group from top to bottom, from east to west, north to south. So I just was concerned about the cutoff date.
It's a tentative cutoff date. We can extend it if we feel like we're not getting enough distribution or just straight responses. So that's definitely flexible. What we find, though, is if people don't respond to a survey within the first week or week and a half, you see a real drop. And then unless there are channel boosts and other means of spreading the word, then you don't necessarily get another peak in responses.
Well, I'm just going to say Siloam is a slow community, and that's part of what we like. But because of the diversity I was just talking about in terms of age range and what they use and things like that, sometimes it takes a few weeks because people don't get any word of anything until they go to church, and so that I'm just saying, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get the word out.
That's fair, and that does give us some marching orders with regard to reaching out to other populations.
I want you to have as many people as possible on age range and from around the entire city, so. Yeah.
Thanks, that's very important. We want that as well.
Thank you, Dawn.
And I have a comment related to that. Have you considered reaching out to some of the businesses, churches, school district, and have them send links to the survey to all of their employees or parishioners or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have. And the CPAC members are strategically selected because they do have connections to a lot of those populations and resources. So that is absolutely part of what we're pushing
Civic
for.
clubs and things like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a comment to that. Have you thought about the utility billing?
I was thinking.
We have talked about that. And so there's definitely an opportunity to get into a billing cycle so that people get, just
Within
information.
that April 12th timeline, we are able to put it in utility billing.
Okay.
We used to insert a little colored, like brightly colored
Right.
To draw their
flyer,
attention.
so
Something that's
they can't
not
miss
just a
it.
white
Yeah.
piece of paper.
Yeah, like fluorescent orange or something.
Okay.
What is a normal percentage response?
Oh, wow. It ranges wildly from different communities. We've seen communities respond, and I can't tell you the exact population. I want to say we did a survey in a Texas community that's probably a little bit larger than this, and we got more than 1,000 responses. which was a pretty good percentage of their population. But it all depends on how good the team is at getting the word out into the community and providing multiple ways for people to access the survey. We will make this survey available in hard copy form as well for people who are not, tech savvy or interested in using an online survey. So, I think we set a goal of 1,000 people. Do you remember what our target goal was for the survey? I want to say it's 1,000, which I think would be attainable, especially given where we're starting. I think we've got some people that are already starting to voice interest. As soon as the first notice went out on the city's website from the communications team here, we started getting people signing up on the project website for updates.
Yeah, I've seen it on Facebook. That's a good.
Yeah, it's a good start.
The other question I have is, we've just gone through a census,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of delayed because of the pandemic, and I don't know when those numbers are going to be coming out. Do you?
They will not be out until, I want to say, in full, it's going to be mid-22.
So that won't be anything that will impact what we're doing.
No, we're going to be working off of estimates that are probably very reliable, but not the specific 2020 census results.
Okay.
But we'll do our best to interpolate and make sure that we're realistic in what we're using.
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Have we thought about the people that do not live in the community but shop here and are here as, part of bringing in the influx of tax dollars and stuff, how we can involve them in any of the surveys?
Well, we're not limiting access to the survey in any way, so you're not required to have a Siloam Springs address to submit the survey, and we really do just want anybody who we would consider a stakeholder, someone who has a stake in the future of the city, and that would be people who live here, work here, shop here, visit even.
All right, thank you.
Ted?
Okay. We do have representation on the CPAC from the school district as well as from the Latinx community. So we'll make an effort to emphasize that. Yeah.
Director Carroll, did you have a question? Everyone else seems to have.
Oh yeah.
No, I was going to suggest what Lisa suggested with the utility billing.
Thank you. Don?
Sorry, Don Clark, Community Development Director. Yes, we had discussed the using the utility billing as well. We're also going to put links to this on our computers at the library for those who maybe don't have computers at home but want to respond to the survey electronically. But then also to paper copies, as people coming in and talking to us, we'll ask, have you completed this? We talked in our meeting with staff about even taxi riders who take part in our taxi program, making sure that we get their information. If they're unable to do it, we'll take it for them and enter it in for them. The other thing is on that survey, it asks, are you a Siloam Springs resident? Do you shop here? Do you live outside in the county? So we'll get a good understanding of who's responding to that survey as we go through the process as well. So I just wanted to make sure we brought that to light as well.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the board? Planning and zoning? If not, Don and Jason, thank you all very much for your presentation and for being here. And with that, we will adjourn this workshop.
Yeah, oh man,
Thank you, everyone.
There you go.
I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for March 2nd, 2021. Roll call.
Sappington,
Here.
Smiley,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Rissler,
Here.
Allen,
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
At this time, I would like to ask you to please stand with us as Director Hunt leads us in a word of prayer. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for bringing us here together tonight to talk about this city and the citizens and the best that we can do on their behalf, Lord. Thank you for the presentation we had about the plan for the future of Siloam and just the input we were able to provide about getting as many people involved in the process as we can. Lord, I thank you for this nice weather we've been having, and I just ask that you continue to be with those people who are still suffering from the bad weather we had a couple of weeks ago. Thank you for all the city workers who put themselves out there to help people during that bad weather. And again, I just thank you that the weather has gotten better and that we've been able to enjoy some nice days and have a few more nice days in the future. I pray that you be with us during our discussions tonight, and I thank you again. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, it is the public input. The public may address the Board of Directors regarding any item on the consent agenda or any city business not listed on the regular agenda for the board. Is there anyone here that would like to speak at this time? Please come forward, give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Give me just a moment.
Uh-huh.
My name is Edwin Lindo. My address is 421 East Helena Street, Siloam Springs.
Thank you.
Okay. So may I speak to the board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If I may, in past boards that I've served on, they only allow about 5-6 minutes to speak to such a board, whether it be city or county. So I'll keep my remarks brief, but I know when you look at someone, they're the same person as you are, so just being a little nervous nonetheless, though I've sat in those actual chairs and other positions, you still get nervous because you want to respect the people that are representing the community. So, but I wrote some things down. I want to basically give you a history reminder or kind of stir your memory. In the 1970s, our steel industry was attacked by Japan through dumping of their steel products at a loss, hoping to gain a share of the market, and by the way, it was inferior steel. Again, in the mid-1970s, we lost oil production and started to decline oil embargo with long lines at the pump. It wasn't until the last few years that we did regain our oil and energy independence. Now, footnote, it took years to develop and implement the new fuels such as flex fuels, E85 called ethanol, which has a corn additive into it, besides the diesel in cars, propane, and now battery electric vehicles. Our garment industry in the United States has moved. I only know perhaps 3 factories that make, for example, blankets and wool products, in the United States. Pendleton in Oregon and Faribault in Minnesota. Shoe companies, very few. I only know of Allen Edmonds in Wisconsin, and SAS Shoes, known as San Antonio Shoes in Texas, and maybe 1 or 2 others. Now, dealing with the Midwest of the United States, in the 1990s, It was a wonderful idea to sign the NAFTA treaty, but it cost thousands of jobs to go south. Plants closed here, especially in the Midwest and throughout the country, including in the Asian markets took great advantage of NAFTA. I read a national editorial during that time that entitled "The United States of China." That article infuriated me from that day and even to now. Others, such as home issues, pertains to the 1980s. There were variable interest rates. Early 2000s, derivative loans, which means low amounts in the early years, and they incremented higher to thinking that the values would go up, people could sell their homes at a profit, requalify. And then in 2008, and before that, they lowered the home qualifying loans requirements for individuals who couldn't qualify through the conventional mortgage avenues. And we saw the result of that. We've had various bubble bursts every 20 years or so. And now we see products as electronics, et cetera, being halted because of the coronavirus. January 29th, I was at the state capitol, met with the governor's office, spoke with Paul and some others there of the governor's team, and I expressed to them a desire that I have. And I'm just deviating away from my notes that I have here.
Mr. Wendell,
I see
your 3 minutes is actually up. If
Oh,
you
is it?
could
Okay.
kind of
I want to see
conclude.
the factory on 412 operating. I have experience in manufacturing for many years. Now, I've tried to approach one or two people here through the city, and I'm not being able to make contact. So that's why I'm standing before you today. I already have invested over $200,000 in the city through various means, and I intend on investing more. But this factory is a thorn in my side. And I'd like to see this factory started again. And so I'm here today asking for your help and direction and guidance and counsel on how to make that a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Is there anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I'm Jerry Cook. I'm the manager of customer support services for the Grand River Dam Authority. And although I'm not a citizen of your great city, I wanted to take an opportunity to come over and thank you, your directors, and Philip and Phil for the outstanding work the community and they did during our recent curtailment of power. It was a very difficult decision, but one we knew we had to make along with our instructions from SPP. I followed Philip's remarks from your last meeting, and he was very accurate and very thorough on his explanation. But I wanted to come over tonight and just say thank you. Your community has a great dynamic to it, as evidenced by the meeting you just had with all the great planning that's going on. Also wanted to thank the community for sponsoring a intern in a new lineman program that GRDA is a part of. We've worked really hard to make sure we had some good connections in a lot of our communities, and Siloam Springs has been one of those. We appreciate all that you're able to do in your partnership with GRDA, and I wanted to come tonight just to say thank you.
We appreciate that, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We appreciate our partnership with GRDA.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else?
Forgive me if I may add an addendum to my statement. I'm Edwin Lindo. I want to say I thank the board for the resolution you passed last year in regards to your support of the police department. Being a law enforcement chaplain and for many, many years and military chaplain, it was a great heart to me to know that you stand behind your police and fire. And so I just want to publicly say thank you for doing that.
Thank you. there anyone else? There being none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes from February 16th, 2021. Item B, dedication of utility easements and right-of-way, 20430 Keck Road. Resolution 06-21, street closures, Dogwood Festival, Homegrown Festival, and Turkey Trot. Item D, 2020 destruction affidavit, records. Item E, purchase electric department, case 590 SN, loader backhoe from Scott Equipment, $109,700. This is a budgeted item that was approved by the board. Is there any comments from the directors? Any item that you would like to have pulled from this consent agenda?
Madam
Director
Mayor,
Allen?
letter C, I would like to pull off.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If there is not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda without item C?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Director Allen, item C we have removed. Do you have some questions on that?
Yes, the street closing, so far out in advance for the Homegrown Festival seems a little rash at this point. That thing is not till October. I fully grasp doing the Turkey Trot and Dogwood, and that it is next month. Homegrown Festival, I think, who knows what may come up between then and now, and I think we should wait until a couple of months before then to close. That is the entire downtown area, and if there's some emergency we can't do it, we've already approved it. I'd rather us pull that off of it.
Thank you. Don, would you like to address that?
Don Clark, Community Development Director. Yeah, the intent was not only for eventually, just historically, this has not been before the board. I think it was last year, sometime, I think it might have been in the fall, we realized after reading the code that these actually needed to come before the board and not just be approved at a staff level. So the intent was to try to figure out all those events and bring it to the board and just try to get it to come before you one time for convenience sake. It still has to have staff approval and sign off on from the police department and Public Works and Fire Department, but at least bring the street closures to you at one time was the goal and what the intent was. So, I think we're open to suggestions. If, it's the pleasure to pull this and bring it back later, we can. The Turkey Trot is in November, and so we were just trying to think of, there are probably going to be a few others that we may bring.
Dawn, it says the Turkey Trot's in April.
I was wondering about that. Isn't that usually in November?
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's why I said Turkey Trot and Dogwood Festival, because they're both in April, at least on the paper we got, so.
Thought
Right.
maybe they
That's
didn't have one.
incorrect, and I'll take responsibility for that, so we can correct that. And so if it's the same with the Turkey Trot, if you just want to approve the Dogwood Festival at this time, and we pull the other items until closer, maybe 60 days out or so, we can do that. It's up to the board.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Cindy.
this first sentence here, it says, whereas Section 86.3 of the City of Siloam Springs Municipal Code states that the Board of Directors by resolution may permit temporary street closures. So based on what you've just said, it sounds like even if we were to go ahead and approve these for the sake of going ahead and doing all of it at the same time, that doesn't mean that if something came up, it couldn't be changed. To address Director Allen's concern that what if something else comes up and we're tied to this? We're not necessarily tied. Is that? I mean, we're giving you approval to say that you can close the streets.
Right, to permit the event from happening, but, you know, similar to what happened last year with the pandemic, there were a lot of things that were canceled or needed to be shifted, and we could do so as well. I would think so with that, unless I'm speaking out of turn.
The resolution is that, and you could pass another resolution to rescind the street closure if there was some situation that required that. As Don stated, historically, these have not been before the board. The staff is approving or reviews the special event permits, and as part of that review, historically, they've been submitted this early in time so they could get it on the books, and staff has said, okay, you can close the streets. As Don stated, the idea from the staff level is those events that we know are annual is to go ahead and bring them to the board. If it's the board's pleasure to do them one at a time, 60 to 90 days out, I think it's going to be more, and some events are going to want it to be early as possible so they know that they've got their special event permit approved, but that's up to the board.
With Don's explanation, with the way this is worded, I would be comfortable going ahead and approving all at the same time with the change to the date for the turkey trot.
That's right.
I was just concerned that if we were to approve it for the entire year, and that we are so far out from both of those events now, that if some emergency came about, and I thought we'd be locked in by doing it, that
Yes,
we'd
sir.
get sued if we had to say, no, you can't do it because something's come up and we have to use the streets.
Yes,
So
sir.
That's where I was coming from.
Understood.
But if it, as Bidney says, the word may permit, and you would be able to rescind it, then that's fine with me.
Director Smiley?
I just don't see a purpose of doing it individually. I think it's very convenient to do it all at one time. It gives these event organizers the opportunity to know that we are approving it. It also gives the businesses a time frame to know when those streets are going to be closed if it affects them. I see no reason not to pass this.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
the thing I like about this is we just had a workshop on the comprehensive plan, and we're worried about getting input. So this gets the information out there and makes people aware. And I'll tell you another thing, I really like the move on the Homegrown Festival. If we recall in the past, East Main was blocked and Alpine was blocked, and so by moving that up, opens up that Alpine Street and opens up, keeps University open, and we just have that little section of East Central. So that was a good move on their part. And getting information out there for the public, even though we may have some, it's 2021, so anything's possible, right, after last year. But I appreciate staff working on that, and Main Street for working with the Homegrown Festival and understanding that, getting that fluid movement around downtown. I think that's a great thing. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I realize the need to plan ahead because of COVID and the strict guidelines that are in force right now. So I can accommodate this. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and get it done. And I would be okay with, just making the change for the date of the turkey trot and putting it through like this.
Anyone else?
You probably just call that a Scrivener's error.
Yeah.
And,
I think I had in mind the Dogwood 5K.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I apologize. For
Shame
that.
on you.
So do we have a motion to approve item C as presented?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Allen,
yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next item is ordinances. Ordinance 21-02, placed on the second reading, vacation of unnamed rights-of-way, 316 North Hico Street. Ben?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. I'm Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. So yes, before you is the second reading for the proposed alleyway closures. Again, these were the ones that, at the Simmons plant as part of the CD Gunter's addition. Since the first reading, we have not received any additional comments, and we stand ready for any of your questions. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment or have a question on this ordinance? There being none, directors?
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Motion that we approve, was somebody else speaking? I'm sorry.
Brad?
No, by all means, Director Allen.
I was just gonna make a
Mr. Allen?
motion to approve ordinance 2102.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to place this ordinance.
That's the wrong motion.
Are we on a second reading?
Yes.
We're on the second reading, yes. So we're going to, so Director Allen, you would like to make a motion to place ordinance 2102 on its second reading?
Yes.
Okay, suspending the rules and reading title only.
Yes.
And Mindy?
I still second that.
Thank you. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Philip?
Ordinance number 21-02, an ordinance vacating and abandoning certain rights-of-way within the CD Gunter's Edition, number 1, City of Siloam Springs.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 21-03, first reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from A1 to R2, 813 Arkansas Highway 16. Ben?
Yes, thank you again, Madam Mayor and members of the board. So you're looking at is a rezoning occurring at 813 South or Highway 16. This is the rezone a recently annexed property from A1 to R2, as shown on the map there. And here is the site plan. The zoning is only the interior area of that property, as I'm drawing in over here. As you know, with any rezoning, we show you the future land use map from the 2008 comprehensive plan. This is set as a mixed use, which is appropriate for any number of residential or commercial units. The proposed R2 zone does fit in with the master plan for mixed use there. And finally, here's the site view. You can see the variety of housing types in the area. Most are single family abutting the property. You'll also note that the property to the east is also developing as single family as well. Staff and the Planning Commission have reviewed this and are recommending approval, and we're available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment or question on this ordinance? If not, directors, any comments or questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Ben, my neighbor, once it's a rezone, it's gonna be contiguous with with the property in front. Is that it, or is it owned by the same person?
It's owned by the same person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the access for development would probably come off of 16?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's all one lot. They just have to zone the interior part because that was the island that got annexed differently. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Usually I have questions. This time I just want to make a statement that I've made before to Ben. I just appreciate these memos where you put a text box around some of the important information, where you give us the key points, the general summary. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very welcome. I got that from a conference, actually. So it's
very
good to get
helpful.
training, you know.
Money well spent, Ben.
Yep.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Hey, Ben, I like your work too, but I'm going to be a broken record. And Highway 16 came up again, and more development. And I think we had that conversation about that load. So that's my broken record. Just remind us over and over again what's happening on East Kenwood and 16. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
I don't know that broken record, Brad. Can you, what's your concern?
Oh,
I'm curious.
So there's another development over there, David, that, so we started talking about Kenwood, from Kenwood 16 going to 412, and the need in the future to address that road and that load on there as we develop, specifically just what's on the books and if that all gets filled up one day.
Just Kenwood or Highway 16 too? Or
16 to Kenwood seems to be the load. Kenwood, East Kenwood is being addressed. I know city admin's been working with the county, and it gets complicated out there in that ward, and I'm happy somebody else has that ward. Not to take away, but that's a lot of growth for folks out there. And
It is.
but 412 and 16 in progress is one of our problem intersections. And one day it will have to be addressed, and somewhere RDOT's going to have to get more aggressive or participate better with us. I don't know what the words are, Philip. What would you like to say?
Well, if I may, you're exactly right. On 412, that intersection it needs work. And we will be having some discussions in the future with RDOT as it relates to their half-cent sales tax and trying to figure out how to fit that into their projects. We've had internally conversations about how to move forward with improvements to Kenwood. We've had discussions with the county. It's part county, part city, all county. It's a hodgepodge of ownership, which creates problems in itself. One of the board's goals is to try to find ways to expand and strengthen our street and road improvement program. And so we're working on trying to hopefully in the second quarter of this year bring a report to the board with some ideas about how to stretch those dollars and how to maybe accelerate some improvements. And one of them obviously would be Kenwood between 16 and at least Bruce Rutherford. Beyond that, it becomes a fully county road at that point. And then having conversations with the highway department because Highway 16 is theirs, and that intersection, at least the southern leg of that intersection, is all the highway department also.
Madam Mayor. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
I'd like to piggyback on Director Burns. Not only the streets, but the drainage in that area as well. My mom, that's my mom's neighborhood right there. And it has been an issue, and I don't want that forgotten in this process because it has been a big issue in that area, especially when we start doing those streets.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Yes.
And also, to piggyback on that, I'm assuming when we talk about street improvements, we are talking about pedestrian access as well, because I know that there are quite a few pedestrians even going as far as Kenwood that walk along 16, and I think some of that has a sidewalk, but I don't think all of it does. So just as we're thinking about all of that, and that's probably just going to increase as we get more homes around Kenwood. So
I think from staff's perspective, when we start talking, as in the case of Kenwood, it's likely to have to be completely rebuilt and widened.
Yeah.
And anytime we do that, I think,
Sidewalks
we're talking about as much multimodal transportation options as possible, but, complete streets include pedestrian ways and even bicycle ways to move those different modes of traffic.
perfect.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. So we will get back to our ordinance for tonight about rezoning. Are there any comments about the rezoning? Do I have a motion to place ordinance 2103 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading title only?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I so move.
Second.
Is this 2103 or 01?
21-03. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Philip?
Ordinance number 21-03, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from A1 to R2 property located at 813 Arkansas Highway 16.
Thank you. Next item is Ordinance 21-04, first reading, amending City Municipal Code, Chapter 102, zoning, floor to area ratio. Ben, your show again.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. We're changing gears a little bit here, and before you is a proposed city code change looking at the city's floor to area ratio, or FAR. Staff has received several complaints from different home builders on this particular rule, which is what prompted the code change before you. So the FAR calculation is where the house size under roof is divided by the size of the lot. In most cases, this is a decimal required to be at or below 0.33 or 1/3. The issue is the code requires that all the house under roof is counted as a house area. So this is even the non-heated or partially outdoor areas that are covered, like a outdoor covered patio. So house sizes can become quite large on a lot when factoring in the covered areas. So we looked into this and reached out to other Northwest Arkansas cities and discovered, actually to my surprise, that Siloam Springs is the only city that actually uses floor to area ratio for residential. Other cities do use it for commercial, industrial, but it's not residential. So furthermore, when you take in the height limit and the lot coverage rule, which basically says how much of the lot you can pave over, and then how height limits, obviously how tall the structure can be, the FAR kind of loses some of its relevance as the size of the house is already restricted by those other rules, the lot coverage and height limit. And it also should be understood that if we do remove the FAR, it does not change setbacks, the height limit, or any other regulatory aspects of the building's bulk and area. Houses are not going to be built closer together, for instance, just because this floor to area ratio FAR is being taken out. Staff's proposal is to remove the FAR from all the residential R zones, and also to update the rule in the H1DT district. So because most people who are not planners are not familiar with the FAA rule, I have included a graphic to visually show you kind of how this is calculated. So the left side of this chart indicates the lot coverage ratio, or how much of the lot's paved over. And then on the top is the FAR, the floor to area ratio. So for instance, the bottom center here gives you a floor to area ratio of 1.0, which is where the building would cover 100% of the lot. But you can get that same FAR ratio if the building covers only half the lot, because now the building's gone up 2 stories. So that's how you calculate it. And then again, even the same level if it's only a quarter of a lot, but it's going up now 4 stories, because it's the same area of the building on the same side as the lot. So when we considered the downtown area, it made sense to use the FAR of 2.0, as we typically see 2-story structures built along on its lot, going up 2 stories. And the goal being not to change the existing environment in the downtown, but to match the codes to the existing environment. And with that, staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of the proposed ordinance, and we stand by for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone in the audience that has a question or a comment about this ordinance? There being none, directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Ben, you said what prompted this was complaints from developers. Is that what you said?
Mostly home builders, yes.
Has this been an ongoing thing that's come up before in the past that they've pointed out?
I think it's been an issue with all the growth that we've been having in the last couple of years, but I'd say it's been primarily an issue in the last 2 to 3 years. More so because houses are getting larger and have those covered back patios more often than we've seen in the past. So, yeah, it's come up a lot more recently.
Well, the reason I ask, at our first meeting, I learned that we'd changed code to allow more homes in a area than we used to have, basically catering to the requested developer. I want to make sure we're not making this change just because the developer's wanting to do more homes on a certain amount of land, and that this is something that's going to actually have a reasoning behind it that makes sense. It sits with me that if the other cities don't do this, then yeah, we probably don't need to be doing it. But what was the reason for doing it in the first place? Did the other cities have it and then get rid of it?
I don't have any of that
I
information.
didn't know if you ever even asked them that, but
No, I don't have it. I mean, it's a rule that's used certainly by planning and zoning.
I can
but,
see why
yeah.
it would be for commercial and industrial for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. I just didn't know what prompted in the first place to have the FAR, but I just want to make sure we're doing this to cover the not just current developers that are needing help or something. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we place ordinance number 21-04 on its first reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Chrysler.
Yes.
Motion passes. Philip?
Ordinance number 21-04, an ordinance amending Chapter 102 zoning code of the Municipal Code with respect to floor area ratio.
Thank you. At this time, we have our staff reports. Philip?
Madam Mayor, Christina Petrich, the Finance Director, would like to provide the board an overview of the year-end 2020 financials.
Christina?
Mayor, members of the board, Christina Petrichis, Finance Director. The unaudited 2020 year-end financial statements will be published prior to April 1st in accordance with state law, and I just want to briefly cover some of the highlights that are related to that report. Citywide budgets were cut due to the uncertainty related to COVID-19. When we put the money back into the budget for all of the different funds, there was a lot of that budget that went unspent. So you'll see that our expenses are under budget in most places throughout the financials. Of note, in the general fund, the city's programs lost a significant amount of revenue due to COVID-19. And staff applied for and received a COVID-related grant through the state that put us back in the black relative to the budget. In addition to the budget cuts, 2 large projects that require public participation were delayed until 2021. That was also due to COVID. Streets had additional revenue due to an unbudgeted drainage grant. And expenses were kept low due to both COVID and weather-related delays on the Kenwood widening project. In the utility fund, water and sewer sales were up. Electric sales were down for the year, but the power cost also declined. This resulted in a net increase in revenue that exceeded budget. And the transfers based on utility sales increased as well. Operation expenses in the utility funds exceeded budget mainly due to the failure of the water reuse system. That cost the city an additional $320,000 in utilities. The airport had significant decreases in both fuel sales and in fuel purchases. Despite COVID-19, the city's total revenues exceeded expenditures by more than budget, which means overall the city had a good year financially. And staff is available for questions.
Thank you. Directors, any questions? Christina? Thank you very much. Philip, Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Director Ressler for the drinking cups. She provided those to all of the employees and also to the board. Thank you. The city received approval of the grant that we applied for the Holly Street overlay, $300,000 from the Arkansas State Street Aid Committee. So that overlay will provide for an overlay of Holly Street from 412 to University and potentially down the hill to University, down the hill on University to Dogwood. So that's the goal, to try to do that, but that is good news from the state. Our February sales tax receipts are up 7% on the month for the city and 6.8% for the year to date. And the county receipt for the month was up 9.4%, and year to date it's up just under 14%. At the end of last year, the city purchased the utility tri-state building there at Lincoln and Main Street. And the company is in the process of building a new building in West Siloam Springs, and we entered into a lease agreement with that company because they were delayed due to COVID in the state of Oklahoma in getting their building permits and getting under construction. Utilities Tri-State contacted me a few days or a week or so ago and asked if we had any interest in some equipment that they had that they would rather not move. There's an air compressor, very large air compressor there. There is heavy-duty shelving that we would definitely need in the maintenance shop as we move that maintenance shop to that facility. And there was also a refrigerator. I asked staff to go over there and look at it and see if what the value they think of those that equipment would be, comparing it to what it would cost new. And I would just like to ask the board, if no objections, that you grant me the ability to negotiate a trade-off with rent to purchase, or to trade off the rent in exchange for them leaving those pieces of equipment and not moving them, so that they become ownership of the city. There is approximately $20,000 in the budget for this year for shelving, and I don't believe that we would have to spend all and possibly any of that on shelving if we buy the shelving that's here. I don't know if we need more. I have yet to ask staff for that. One of the other things we wanted to do this year that we didn't fund in the budget was potentially do showers for the maintenance staff. If they get covered in oil or covered in gasoline, they need to be able to take a shower. And if we're able to do this, I think you might find that we come back and ask to add another capital expense, but not capital monies, to the budget if we're able to do that. So if there's no objection, I would like to be able to negotiate in exchange for the last month, 2 months rent, to swap that out for that equipment. And you can give me your information during your reports. On the storm damage, we've sustained about $86,000, almost $87,000 worth of damage from the storm, the cold weather. We had 2 sludge pumps at the wastewater treatment plant freeze, and during that short period of time when the power was off, the water froze and cracked the outside of those pumps. They're very expensive, about $25,000 each. We had a booster pump that froze at the water treatment plant. We couldn't get it to work again. It replaced, we already replaced it. That's about $1,850. We had a booster, a water pump at the airport for the water system that provides greater pressure for some residents outside the city. That was repaired at $955. In the police department, the generator broke, the backup generator. We've estimated a cost of just under $25,000 for that repair. We've rented a generator today as a backup for the police department at $3,000 a month. We've already begun to repair the sprinkler system pipe that broke there for about $1,800. We also had some damage done to the surveillance equipment of about $1,000. We had another pipe break in the community development department, and we've repaired that for $275. We believe that all of this would be covered by insurance. We have asked them, and they are looking into it, and if it is, our deductible is $10,000. But it's likely that at some point I'll have to update the board that there were some emergency expenditures to make this all work, but I wanted to update the board that we did receive some damage as it relates to the storm. The Arkansas Center for Health Improvement has not updated their COVID numbers since February the 8th, so I don't have updated tables to provide you. Due to the storm, the ice storm and down in central Arkansas, they just haven't updated. I was hoping they would do it last Thursday, but they haven't, so I don't have updated numbers since the last time we met. However, on the 26th of February, Governor Hutchinson extended the emergency declaration for wearing of masks due to the COVID pandemic through the end of March. The city's current emergency declaration is through March 10th, and historically, as we have extended that from time to time, I've asked the board if there would be any objections to extending that for an additional 28 days from March the 10th to April the 7th. According to the governor, if the positivity rate is less than 10%, he will likely lift the emergency declaration at the end of March and lift the mandate for wearing of masks. If that positivity rate in the state is not less than 10%, it is likely that he will extend the emergency declaration and extend the mandate for wearing masks. And if we extend through April 7th, the city's emergency declaration, that'll get us through the first board meeting in April in case we have to request to extend the emergency declaration at the city. If not, at that point, then it would expire on April 7th. Madam Mayor, that's all I have, and I would at least like to some feedback about the idea of the negotiation with Utility Tri-State on rent, and if there's any objections to extending the emergency declaration for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So, directors, I would ask that as you give your reports and comments, that you also address Philip's request. And tonight, we will start with Director Carroll.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Administrator Patterson, concerning Tri-State, I give that a thumbs up, as well as extending what we need to for the COVID-19. Mine's going to be short tonight. Have been continued to be impressed with how our city has worked together to get through a hardship during the storm, getting past the cold weather. And it's just amazing to me how we, not just the city employees, but we as the citizens seems to work together with that. I just hear good comments of how our city is operating, and not just on our level, but just down to the very basics even. And very impressed. Looking forward to our 2040 plan and what we can and will do. I have high expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Burns?
On city admin report, yes on 3 and 5. And on city website, there's some good stuff out there. And one of the things we need to remember for folks, and anybody that can help remind, we've got a water leak bill adjustment that is coming on board for the numerous pipes that specifically residential. So as folks get their bills and check out the city website and see how we can help you out on that. I'm thankful for that city comprehensive plan for 2040. Having participated in several in the past, I know it's trying times, and I have no doubt us as a board and the city communicator will do an outstanding job to make sure we process all that input. I've already signed up for it, and I gave my input. I don't know if it went anywhere yet, but you know, I typed some words. And the other thing I wasn't able to make, and I know several of the board members did on the Sager Creek at the golf course, and thank you for making it. I had my own nature problems in the River Valley, but I'm really excited about that, and I think that's going to be a significant catalyst as we go into the future and talk about economic development and quality of life projects. So I'm excited about that. And as we dug around and we start looking at numbers, and I know it's a tough time for everybody as we struggle and optimistic about the year, and we've gone to another phase for the COVID shots, and they're reducing the age, and the food manufacturing processing facilities are going to be have their employees opened up to if they choose to get inoculated, if that's a word you'd like to use on that one. But I hope they make that choice. But as I read through our budget plan, one of the things we came up with in 2019, the board approved a resolution adopting financial management policies. Within the framework of these policies, 4 guiding principles were used by staff in developing the 2021 budget. And they are: maintain current tax rate for citizens, invest more in city employees, invest more in infrastructure and maintain city's investments in infrastructures, and maintain fund reserves. So we've done that and balanced the budget, and I just want to remind folks that's one of the things that we have done. And the second one, invest more in city employees. My weakness, you know, we just talked about comprehensive plan. My weakness is I don't do a lot of attaboys. I have a lot of expectations of city employees. I used to be one of them. And but that's just not one of the things. I learned that a long time ago. I just have high expectations of city employees. But as we go through these budgeted items, I'm noticing that we're coming under budget on quite a few of these. And I know we go out through the year and we look at that and we roll it in, and sometimes we dibble back in it. But I would like for us, as we go on in the year, and if we continue this, I think our city employees did an outstanding job during our last crisis. We had a tornado last year. We had extended freezing temperatures, and we found out the southern building codes don't work well when we lose the southern part of our world. And so, you know, it'd be nice looking out in the near future if we had the ability to, you know, give $100, give a little bonus, let folks take their family out to eat, encouraging them to put that money back into our local economy. But words are good. I'm more into action. And I'd like the city admin to consider that as we go on, and I think they're more than worthy to get something for the services they've been providing. So thank you for that consideration.
Thank you, Director Burns. Director Smiley?
I too support the utility tri-state building and also the extending the emergency clause. I think that was what it was. I don't have really a lot to say tonight. I'm going to try to be a little bit quiet. I do encourage people to sign up for the project updates and event notifications on the comprehensive plan, which my understanding is Siloam Springs 2040.com. I hope people realize how important this comprehensive plan is, not only for your future, but more for the future of your children and those coming before us. This is how we decide how this city is going to function, and where we're going to put different things that enhance your life and those of others. And then I also just want to remind everybody that we do have an animal shelter. These animals are up for adoption. I think for a while the Pet Finder website was down, but you can always go to the Siloam Springs website. There are some really cute ones at the shelter right now, whether you're looking for small or large. Call ahead, make an appointment, and if you're not interested in adopting an animal, perhaps you would like to provide them with some chews, something to keep them occupied while they're in there. So I appreciate everything that everyone does. I appreciate the update on the comprehensive plan. I appreciate Mr. Cook from GRDA coming and expressing to us the thanks for our community, because our citizens were amazing during this. So was our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Lisa?
I want to start off with, I received an email, and I don't know if the other directors received the same email, but I've had citizens also approach me about this, so I guess I want to bring it up. If we can revisit, and I know we've talked about it in the past, but revisit the cable, the cable. It was introduced before, it was taken to the citizens on a vote, but then we've revisited it again. And so if we can communicate where we're at with that, if we even are going to move forward, what we're going to do. I'm sorry, yes to both of those too, sorry. Was you going to say something on the Cox?
Yes.
On the cable, sorry. I keep saying Cox. It's cable.
Well, I saw an email today about cable TV. At the next board meeting, there's going to be a workshop on broadband internet.
Oh, yay.
There has been no direction to staff from this board about looking at cable TV. So we've been focusing on broadband internet, and we can have some discussion at the next workshop about if you decide to go forward, whether it's just broadband, whether it's you want to do cable TV and all that. But our focus has really been on broadband internet based on COVID, based on economic development. Cable TV is, there's so many other streaming services today and all of that that's related to broadband. So I just wanted to say that, but that is on the next, at the next board meeting. John Lester will be here from Clarksville Connected Utilities to speak about how they went through the process of providing that service citywide.
As a director, I would like to hear it no matter what. That way the citizens get answers, because I know I get approached about it a lot. On the Director Burns talked about the water bills and stuff like that. Another thing the city does is if you can't afford your water bill, you can extend that out for a couple of months. You can't just do that on your own. You have to come up to the city and talk to them and get approval, but you can extend paying out those for a couple months out, and so you don't have to come up with all the money at one time. Another question I was asked recently, and a lot of people, especially in the school systems, their children last year didn't get to have the graduation, the prom, and everything's up in the air this year. Somebody asked, they said this is the last year, were they going to go ahead and try to have a daddy-daughter dance through the Parks and Rec? I didn't know the answer to that. They just feel like their children are missing out on so much, and so, but we are getting back to normal. On March 11th, from 5 to 8, the Girls' Night Out downtown, if everybody can participate in that. And yes, the Dogwood Festival is coming back this year. Yay, so excited, getting back to normal. I forget the dates on that. April 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Thank you. So excited about that. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will take this opportunity to just say that I think that we as citizens of Siloam Springs are very, very fortunate and very blessed to have the partnerships that we have to better the quality of life for our citizens. And I commend this board that they are dedicated to seeing that that continues and moves forward. I do want to thank you, Jerry, for being here tonight, for the partnership that GRDA has with the city of Siloam Springs. The other thing I would like to say is I really hope that our citizens are involved in the comprehensive plan. This is an opportunity for you all to be heard. And I know that that's something that I've heard as long as I've been on this board and in the city, is people feel like, well, I'm not being heard. You know, I need a voice. I mean, you know, who do I go to? How can I don't want to come up in front of the board because I'm too nervous to do that, and I understand that. But this is your opportunity. This is a great time to do that. You can mail in that survey, you can do it online, but please be involved. Let your voice be heard. And that's all I would like to say, so Marla?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tri-State, yes, and the extension, yes, and I think we also need to look at the city's positivity rate and not just the state at that time. This is just going to jump right on back of what Mayor Nation said. We are your voice, and we are here for a reason, and that is to be your voice. And with all the things that are coming up and going on through the city, especially the comprehensive plan, please reach out to us. I mean, it's very important to us that we know what you feel. And I just can't say enough about, you know, the contact between your director. If you're not comfortable with your director, there's, you know, the at-large directors. Please, please, please let us know what your concerns are, because I don't think there's anyone sitting up here that's afraid to speak up. That's why we're here, and we want to be your voice. I just wanted to, you know, we are so blessed in our town. Our infrastructure didn't really break down like some of the cities did in the bad weather that came through. And we are so fortunate that our leaders care about the structures. They care about the electricity getting to the hospital when we have, you know, storms. And it's just, it's wonderful to live in a town that really cares, and the employees work really hard to make sure that we get what our city provides to us. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Yes, we do have a good community. We're very blessed. So if you ever need to move, you know, just come on over. Okay. I also want to make sure that we thank Mr. Lindo for talking about the concerns he had with the Franklin Electric building. That was devastating for the community when over 1,500 people lost jobs. I know that people on the board here had members of their family that worked there. I did, and it was devastating for something that had been there since the early 60s, I guess, and it was very devastating, so we understand that. Also, the residential assistance on the water and sewer bills, if you have had problems and you need help getting that information together to submit to the city, come to the Manna Center. I've got volunteers that would be glad to help you work through that. And we are still busy giving out food at the Manna Center. We're doing taxes for free if you didn't get your stimulus check and you need to file just for that reason. Come see us Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We're there to do taxes. And I think that may be everything. And I am just thankful to be part of this community. And my grandkids are here, and The comprehensive plan is very important. So if you need help with that too, just holler.
Thank you, Marla.
I will answer your questions, Philip, but first, before I forget, thank you also, Mr. Cook, for coming over here, for taking the time out of your day to drive over this way and give that word to us. I appreciate it. And we appreciate the services you provide for our city. Yes, I am in support of the exchange for the equipment at Tri-State Building. I do have a question. This is just showing my own confusion on this. If we were to extend the emergency declaration by a week, basically, is there the potential that the state declaration could expire March 31st and then we would still go through April 7th, so we would have an extra week?
That is correct.
And what would that mean for, our city never said we require mask. What would that mean?
It really only gives us the right to do anything from a standpoint of if there's a need from an emergency standpoint to do that authorization. So that declaration of emergency, doing that authorizes at least myself to say we're not doing out of state travel, we're not doing in-state travel.
Okay.
I'm cutting the budgets. We're not going to spend that money. That's really what that is. From a standpoint internally, I think the ability to continue to say it's important to wear your mask, to continue to say we can mandate wearing the mask coming in. If the governor lifts it, chances are we'll lift it also.
Okay.
But I only wanted to extend it in case it doesn't run out before, if it goes to the 31st, ours does, and the governor extends it, then we can't come back and extend it or reset it until the first meeting in April. So I just was asking to extend it long enough to meet the first meeting in April of this board in case we had to ask you to extend it again.
Well, honestly, I think it would be the mask issue that could become an issue for citizens if they felt like we were saying, because we had extended our declaration, that the masks were mandated after they had just heard that they weren't by the governor, if that was
And our declaration does not mandate masks.
Okay. Just want to make that public. Okay. I can just see some of the comments now if there's some confusion over that, like I had the confusion. Director Rissler mentioned the cable. I did get an email too, and I forwarded on to Philip. I think that's probably what he was talking about when he said he saw one. Got an email from someone asking that the city reconsider cable. I wasn't aware that the city had ever considered cable. I thought it was internet coverage myself. And so I was just asking for help from the administrator on how to respond to her, and I will respond with what he has said tonight, that in fact, she may even be interested in watching the workshop when we have it. But internet is what is being considered at this point, not cable. Okay. And yes, just to echo what everyone else has said, this is a great opportunity to be involved by giving your input through first the survey for this comprehensive plan, coming to the meetings that are scheduled. Sounds like we have the first one on March 18th. And there will be others scheduled probably after that. When the representative was here and said that she hoped for 1,000 people to respond to the survey, I thought, well, that's actually a little bit low. That's less than 10%. Probably pretty typical for a response. I think for those kinds of things, it's usually about a 3 to 5% response is considered successful. But I think we could do better than 1,000, and I'm glad we had some opportunity to suggest ways to get those surveys out to the community. So we just want to keep doing that and keep encouraging people to respond. I sent myself an email already this morning reminding myself to post that link on Facebook in 2 or 3 places tomorrow, and I've already seen it myself even before the meeting tonight. So yeah, let's keep encouraging people to get involved.
Thank you, Mindy. Director Allen.
I also want to thank our customer support service manager, Jerry from GRDA. I was on the board in the 90s, and we've been with you guys for a long, long time, a great relationship, and we appreciate your company. I mean, there's been other winter storms, and you guys get us back just so quickly. Compared to some of the other electric companies, it can be weeks, so we appreciate your company a great deal. I was gonna voice my support for the tri-state decision. Philip, do you need a motion?
No, sir, it's within my spending
Okay.
authority. I just, you approved the lease, and I had to bring the lease to you for approval. So with that, support, I think it is all I need.
I
from
just
that.
had one question. In terms of tri-state, did the city or chamber, did anybody kind of maybe talk them, or try to talk them into, hey, why don't you build your building in Siloam? I didn't know until tonight that you said they're building over in West Siloam.
We did, and they were looking to build on 412, and the price of the land in West Siloam Springs was more to their liking than the price of the land in the city.
Well, speaking of that, I was just gonna mention the gentleman who spoke at the public comments. Just to clarify, the city does not own the Franklin Electric Building. We did many years ago on paper, but Franklin actually owned it and sold it to a local gentleman. So the city really has nothing to do with the Franklin Electric Building. So I just didn't know if he was aware of that, so.
If I may, I can speak briefly to that, but we've been showing the Franklin Electric Building to various entities that are interested in it for the last couple of years, and we will continue to do that and try to find that user. But it's not, I don't want anybody to think that we are not working to try to find a user for that building. We all know that dark buildings are not good for cities.
All right. Well, it's a difficult sell because it's on a main highway, and it's just, it's like smack dab right there. But I remember us doing the same many years ago when the jobs were being shipped. We talked to them, and we could have bought. The city had first right of refusal, and so we could have bought it, and it would have been nice, but it didn't work out. Philip, I got to tell you, I'm continually impressed with your report you give the board of your actions every few weeks. I honestly don't understand how you get it all done and still have an outside life, because there's so many hours in a day, and there's a lot of things you list, and so I'm just telling you, I'm impressed. The other thing, let's see, I had something else, where'd it go? Regarding what was the other thing? Oh, Mindy got it answered in terms of what our mask policy was, or what the declaration of emergency was that you referenced. So I'm glad to hear we're going to do a workshop on broadband. The original plan in 2012 was to do both, but it was because the city already owns a fiber optic system around the entire city. You mentioned the city from Clarksville, or the company in Clarksville. Did you consider this Ozarks Go, or was that somebody you had thought about talking to? I just have heard great things on their speed, is why I didn't know.
So Ozark Go is a private company. The city of Clarksville is one of those in Arkansas who recently took on just doing broadband internet amongst themselves, right? Taking it on. They now have a broadband internet just like they have a water company, a electric company, and so forth.
It's a department.
It's a department. It's a department, but I think, and this is something we'll hear in 2 weeks, I also think that the city of Clarksville, unlike, or kind of like Conway, has their own utility corporation, right? Which makes it easier for them to fund doing broadband and spending that money without necessarily doing a vote. Because it's not a city department, if that makes sense. However, Ozark Go is one that is out there that is doing some great things based on what we hear. What the decision point that is likely that you're going to hear in 2 weeks is going to be a question of, and I just set through, if you obviously read my report to you, I sat through a webinar the other day on expanding broadband access in your local communities, and there were 2 examples of cities and how they did that, and one was to do it in-house and do it themselves and have another utility, and another was to have the city run the fiber optic cable and then lease that to a private company to provide the internet service, so that you as a city didn't have to have all of the Wi-Fi boxes and you didn't have to deal with the customers, right? And both of those have pros and cons, and I think that's going to be the tough decision for this board as to which one is you're likely to do that. Arkansas Go, if we go that second route with a sort of a public-private partnership, Arkansas Go is one that we're going to probably want to have serious conversations with when we do if we go that route, if we do a request for a proposal or something along those lines, because they're just over the line in Oklahoma. They're in Fayetteville because they're part of Ozark Electric, but they're not here. And so we'll have more discussions, but we've got to look at all of those options.
Well, I'll just read for the public record the email that I received that I then encouraged her to let the rest of the board know, and I didn't know she was going to immediately send an email. But she wrote, "I remember when you were mayor and worked hard to get cable as a city utility. I attended the town hall meeting and was impressed with the reports from the Oklahoma towns who provide cable. I was very disappointed when Siloam voted it down. When I lived in Conway in the 80s, Conway Corp already had cable as a city utility. My bill just went up again this month by $7.19, and I don't have a lot of extra stations, but I do receive a lot of stations I care nothing for. There are so many surcharges and taxes. Regional sports surcharge is $3. Broadcast surcharge is $16. Taxes and franchise fees total $20. I'm satisfied with Cox services, and that's why I have not looked elsewhere, but I'm tired of Cox continually raising the price of their services, and I'm not sure I receive anything more for the higher price. They basically have a monopoly. I've gone into their office several times over the last few years and complained when the prices went up. Sometimes they reduce the price for a year or two, and they said I have to ask for the reductions. Could you please renew your effort to have cable included as a city utility? It doesn't even have to provide all the high-priced stations that Cox provides. Basic stations, including weather and news stations, would be a good start. Anymore, cable is a utility as it is hard to function in this world without it. I'm quite sure that all the folks who voted against it years ago are using it daily." And I'll just let everybody know, the whole reason it started, it was talked about by our administrator, Mark Latham, in the late 90s. And of course, when he left, he went to his hometown in Illinois and he got it set up and he's making money on it. But when we pursued this, it was pursued because Cox had raised their prices in 2009, 2010, and 2011, literally the worst years in our nation's pocketbook since the Great Depression, because those were immediately after the 2008 financial crisis. People lost their retirement, they lost it all. And here is a local company raising prices to the customers by 60% in 3 years. It was unheard of. But here's what a lot of people don't know. As soon as we started discussing doing this, the most powerful lobby in the state of Arkansas, a lot of people don't realize it, telecom lobby, telecommunications. And it's not just a cable company or an internet company, it's Verizon. It's AT&T. There's a lot of money, and they give to every politician in the state. So as soon as we started looking at it, there was suddenly a ballot or a statute provided that they were all going to push through the state legislature that would prevent local communities from ever getting in the internet or TV cable business. The only way we were able to continue in 2012 was that we asked to be grandfathered into that. But it passed, and it passed because there were so many people that are, I shouldn't say beholden, I don't think it is that way anymore, but back then there was. And that is the most powerful lobby in the state. So when we started looking at it and put it on the ballot for the public to vote, we suddenly were hit upon by mail-outs and robocalls from this firm hired by this lobby, comparing us to Obamacare. People getting calls and comparing what we were hoping to do to provide a service that would be cheaper and provide more, and the money would stay local. That was the key I tried to impress upon everybody, is the money is going to stay here. At the time, we were estimating at least $1 million every year was leaving the city. But we were unable, I don't know what it was, state law or whatever, but we were unable to spend money to market the benefits to the public, whereas the other side of the coin had lots of money to spend. So we were unable to do anything except public meetings. But that is a lot of the problem, in that we went up against a brick wall. The problem that we also had was that there was a mentality amongst the local talkers that we must defeat this because we need to use that $8 million to build our new library. Of course, it was not $8 million written as a check write-off. It was $8 million cash flowed out of our electric revenue. And my response at the time was, if this passes, we could build you 5 libraries, because it would have been providing so much income and we wouldn't have had to raise rates. Anyway, a lot of people against a city or any government getting in business is what was the downside that people were. And I'm sure those people are happy to be paying the higher prices that they do. But it's sad how many people told me later that they would have gone and voted for it, but they just assumed it would pass because it made perfect sense. So I'm glad it's finally coming back around as a topic of discussion, not just internet. I mean, internet to me really is like a utility. No matter what age you are, you need to be able to have access to it and not be having to decide that or your grocery or your rent. So thank you, Philip, for going and providing us. I knew you'd talked about it, I just didn't know it'd be so quickly. So I'm glad you're going to be bringing this to us to discuss and get educated on it. And Madam Mayor, should I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir, please.
I moved we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Thank you.